Today on Much More Muchier, we speak with Yulia Klass, star of the movie Captors.
How are you ladies doing?
Oh, great. It's great. I'm so excited to be able to speak with you about Captors. I watched it and it is a phenomenal movie. So great. So Captors is a horror, psychological horror thriller, but in that it is way more than that. And it talks about a very profound point of the psychological damage that human trafficking victims suffer, which is, it's something that's not genuinely seen out there in the movie world or the TV shows or anything like that. It's always just, it's almost like Taken, for instance. It's the taking the part or saving the person, but there's no real depth to the struggles that
and thank you for pointing this out. This is a very great observation and something to take out from this movie. Yeah, for sure. It's really, really good observation.
Thank you. I loved it. And I was able to, I study things. I'm one of those people that I need to know the ins and the outs, the symbolisms, all of that. And I just think that the movie was so incredibly well done. But it tells a story of Alice, a victim of human trafficking, who in the midst of trying to push past her mental blocks caused by extreme PTSD and other psychological issues due to the severe trauma that she suffers, and in trying to find a safe haven and to build a new life in which I really enjoyed the legalities of that as well, because that's something that's not ever covered or discussed either. So she's got legal roadblocks that she has to try to fight against as well. And then that struggle, because, in real life and as you saw in the movie, it's really hard to
adjust to the normal life, and it will never happen. That is so true.
Yeah. And then, like getting a job and, various things that we don't even think about that the movie hit on, which I thought was brilliantly done and pivotal.
I'm going to let the director know. He'll be proud to hear this.
Yeah. But she finds herself battling her demons 10 years later in the most horrific way. This piece is written by Philip Day and directed by James Cullen Bressak. And it is starring our lovely Yulia, who's right here, Bruce Davidson, Michelle Burke, and Josh Kelly. So the topic of human trafficking is a painful one that absolutely deserves immense amounts of respect. I think Philip Day, James, and yourself managed to convey the anguish, pain, suffering, turmoil, and such experiences can cause for the victims in a very deeply respectful way. So how did you guys manage to encapsulate the various dynamics of this heinous evil in the world?
We wanted to, originally the script was lacking several elements, and our executive producer, T. Petman Thomas, he actually was co-writer of the story. It was his idea to incorporate the fact that this person was sex trafficked into this country, and because there was something lacking in his mind in the story originally. And once we added this, everything started flowing organically. And, it is very, like you pointed out, not a lot of outlets, not a lot of movies are talking about and showing the internal fight of the survivors of these captivities, right? Some majority of them die. It's just the statistics, and those who make it, they are left to be basically on their own to deal with these, because they're alone in this world. They don't have relatives. They are scared of anybody and anything. They're most of the time illegal, and then they're forced to re-entry the illegal world of of any transaction that is happening in their life pretty much is illegal. So we just wanted to highlight those elements of what these people are going through. And specifically, we're talking about this character. the demons that she's fighting and her internal struggles are enormous. And that's pretty much what we try to showcase here, the horrors of her existence in this life. And
Yes.
no matter how hard she tries to live a normal life, most likely it will not happen for her. It's unfortunate reality.
Right. And that's the reality for all of these victims. You know, they're the programs, the support, the counseling. I mean, you see in the movie where she's kind of pushed out of counseling because she's not progressing, or she's hung up, or so that's support.
And then she has to empty the space so the next girl with the similar problems or some other problems can come in, you know, and use the social service workers. But the thing is, you know, again, this is the horrific reality. And at least, you know, in this country, these victims, they can obtain some sort of counseling. There are countries out there, if they do survive it and they end up somewhere, you know, in China, most likely they may not be, you know, not to point out, you know, maybe they do have counseling, but we heard stories that very scary things when people survive what they have to go through. So we're lucky that here we can have reliability of services of this nature, even though they're limited as well. They're not extending themselves, you know, far out, because those are, you know, complementary state covered services, and those victims cannot afford, you know, paying psychiatrists on a regular basis too. And that's why they can make it, because they don't have a consistent attention to their psychological and psychiatric needs.
Right. And that was, I like that was touched upon as well in the movie. And then, you know, with the samples of medicine and things like that, because the heartbreak that was that her therapists, you know, with knowing that she still needed so much help, but her hands kind of being tied, and not being able to provide that help. So you did mention talking to other people. Did you guys actually reach out and do research in that way?
Yeah. Both James and I, we spoke to doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, patients, you know, and of course, a lot of them, you know, they'll always be anonymous. They're afraid of everything. They're, you know, it was not specifically victims of sex trafficking, but there were victims of certain other captivities, you know, different abuse victims, you know, and all of them, they have everything in common, where they're really like, they don't know how to go on without proper psychiatric help. And that's not necessarily, you know, medication we're talking about, you know, just counseling and, you know, on a regular basis, because it's like being in treatment for, you know, recovery from alcoholism or drug addiction. You know, if you don't go to the meetings, you know, if you don't see the people that are, you know, going through the same problems as you're going through, it's not most likely going to work what you're trying to achieve, you know. So that's what we're trying to cover here in this film. And
I think you guys did it beautifully. Like it was very well done. You guys were able to grab that depth, that emotion. And that's what struck me, because what I loved about this movie is it's not dialogue focused.
Right.
Like I noticed that, and I was like, you know, it's very
minimal dialogue in there, very minimal, and that's what attracted both James and I to the film, is the fact that you know, there's not much dialogue, and he is a director. He needs you know, to figure out a way how to shoot it and how to use the camera angles and the lighting with the director of photography, Dave Newbert. And they did a great job, especially as the movie progresses. You know, you can see the hallucinations increase and how the lighting changes as we go more forward with the film. So for an actor to take a role that pretty much carries the whole film, it's challenging both mentally and physically too. It's draining, but at the same time, you get this adrenaline rush because you want to finish it. You want to get to the bottom of it, you know. And then you get in the character, and it's like it becomes frustrating experience, you know. Because it's like hitting your head on the wall, and it's like trying to achieve something. And so it's a very challenging, both emotionally and physically role. And
you know,
I think when you're an actor and you want to grow, you want to get more roles like this, you know, because you can always get roles with dialogue. It's, of course, you know, and we do have dialogue in the film, but most of it centers on isolation, almost, you know, because she's like capped in this one space, and it's almost claustrophobic, and that's what makes this movie a little bit uncomfortable at times to watch, and creepy due to other elements of it, you know.
Yeah, like I think the first, yes, and I think the first experience that I felt like dirty and creepy, and it was well done, was the landlord scene.
It starts
and
there, for sure.
I was sitting here like, oh, that is so just ick. It was so heavy and so dark.
Exactly, that's another showcase of she's trying to live a normal life. She's trying to adjust in the society, and then the first thing you know, the person who's her landlord is seeking sexual favors in return for you know, other things. So she can't escape it. So in her vision, in her mind, men only want one thing from her,
right?
You know, and she's just you know, she doesn't feel human. She doesn't feel normal, and she probably never will. That's the problem,
right? And so throughout the movie, we see Alice internally struggling with the realities and or delusions of damage that's been caused to her psyche. So how did you funnel the energy into your brilliant and emotionally driven raw performance? Like, what in you was able to well up to help create this character?
You research the role, you not just by talking to other people, but you know, once you start reading the scenes, and you always have to understand, where's this character coming from? What is her, you have to kind of put yourself in her shoes. That's what, you know, teaches in acting classes. This is what once you start, you know, doing more films, and especially roles of this nature, you really study the character. You study, like, you know, where did she physically come from? What is she thinking right now, possibly? You know, is she thinking a life of, you know, I wish I had my mother near here so I can talk to her and to know who she is, and so I can cry on her shoulder because I don't know, you know, who my family is. That maybe she's thinking about, you know, like, I just can't wait to get another pill right now in my, and that, and it's like all of those conflicted thoughts in her head. It's just a mess in her head. And so you're trying to put yourself in those shoes, and how would you act if your head would be messed up right now to the point where you're not eating, you don't have food, you have leftover from those pills, the antipsychosis pills that your psychiatrist gave you recently, and it's only a few pills left. You're afraid to eat the food because you know it's poisoned, right? So no food, no water, pretty much, and just the medication. So that's a recipe for a disaster,
right? And that was the beautiful thing. And I think one of the scenes that really spoke out to me with her and her internal struggle is it was towards the end where she's got the knife over, you know, Josh Kelly, and that you see in real time that internal struggle with the delusion versus the reality,
right? So
versus her fighting.
The twisted Alice comes in play, and James created that character. In the script, it was a little bit differently described, and then James, coming from a horror background, he literally created this very scary, very sloppy and you know, dirty character that is her guilt. This is the guilt she lives with. Right. You know, like this is somebody who is like following her and tells her, you know, her kind of almost split personalities, telling her this is your fault that you got kidnapped because you wore that makeup, because you wore that, you know, that bad girl. You know, if you didn't wear that makeup, nobody would have kidnapped you, basically. So to live with that self guilt, and you know, and we also portray, if you you've seen the film, so you saw the Stockholm Syndrome. So this,
yes, I was actually about to touch on that, because I did notice that. It was so because she lives in these two different worlds and not truly feeling like she belongs anywhere. Like you were saying, there is the portrayal of Stockholm Syndrome as well, which I think is a pivotal aspect to these victims. And oftentimes as a society, we question the hearts of the victims, their intentions, and even shame them even more by not truly understanding the effects of this sort of trauma and how it can create that Stockholm Syndrome with their captors. So how did you creatively come up with the mannerisms and the facial expressions and the emotional fortitude to eloquently display like this terrifying phenomena?
Well, the thing is, we had young Alice was played by another actress. So I was not specifically in those scenes. It's kind of like the flashbacks when her memory starts coming back, because all this 10 years her memory was blocked. She can't remember anything. So when she starts recognizing things and the memory starts coming back, we see that what she was doing. So like this pervert basically was trying to get this other personality out of her, and that personality it wasn't like she had a split personality. It was just, she knew if she becomes that person, she will not be beaten. She will be, taken care of.
She'll survive.
It's a survival mechanism. It's basically creation of positive feelings in hopes of creating a survival for yourself,
Right. And that's, I think, where people don't understand the innate drive and that aspect of Stockholm Syndrome. It is about
real.
that.
It's real. It
very real.
Yeah. And a significant fear of death, of torture leads to Stockholm Syndrome, and just the victims are really scared and they have no other choice. They either die or they cooperate, basically.
Right. Right. So, okay, I have to ask, because I know a lot of creatives will delve into themselves, into like the deepest, darkest recesses of who they are, like their experiences, their traumas and things like that. And it sometimes can be hard for them to come up for air and recenter. Did you struggle with the emotions and the content of the story, or how has it changed you?
It definitely, there were moments where, I had to stop for a second, take a breath. And believe me, there's so many hyperventilation scenes in there, which are physically draining. If you start hyperventilating just for 1 minute, you'll see how it's going to be like, it's going to create dizziness. And, so physically it was very difficult, but I'm talking about, I had to actually stop and take a breath, like a real breath, because some of it was just too challenging at moments, at times. And then James and I will regroup and we will start over. And sometimes he will change some things and he'll say, hey, I want you to approach it from this angle or from that, we change the script pretty much on a daily basis, a little bit here, a little bit there, little tweaks, not like major change, but
Right. Well, and that was the beautiful thing, because you've got that evolution daily of the script and the characters and what they're doing, which helped tie in, I think, the story in a much more wonderful way, because all of you guys were flexible to be able to move with the story of Alice. As a writer myself, I tend to have characters speak to me, and they tell me which direction they want to go. And as soon as I don't want to go that direction, I'm going to force it this way, they stop talking. They're like, okay, we're done. You're not allowing me creative control to tell my story. So I think in having that evolution of the character that you guys were doing daily helped really bring her to life, and felt so real, like you guys were literally telling her story. And that was beautiful.
Thank you. That's good to know that, someone appreciates this and sees it, but it's also what helped toward the end, the escalation of events, is when we brought in the twisted Alice, because I think that character changes everything. This is the actual horror of what, this is the captors there. There's multiple captors. Some people sometimes say, who are the captors? And, you have to watch it, of course, to understand it. But it's pretty deep. This is within her. This is within her soul, within her mind. And this is something that torments her on a daily basis. And that's the horror of this film.
Right. And, that's something that I did notice. I picked up on that, because while the story is also a story of inner strength and breaking free from chains that bind you with one's own mind, So you're facing and fighting demons of trauma we may suffer, clawing our ways like out of the void. The most poetic thing about this film is the fact that it's told, mostly through visual angles of shots, music choices that supplement.
Music plays a big role as well.
It does. It really does. And I did notice the music choices for each specific moment, and that supplemented the emotion in it without like being too much or too little. So, and then your impeccable ability to relay the gamut of emotions for every diverse moment. You flawlessly transitioned from joy to terror to invoking strength. So was this piece one of the harder ones that you've ever worked on?
Yeah, I think not even hard. It's challenging. It's not hard. Nothing is hard in life. It's challenging.
Right.
Just because, emotionally you're drained, and then physically at the end of the day, you're drained too. You come back home after a long day on the set, and then you feel like you just went to the emotional gym. You
Right.
overworked out a little bit this day and then the other day. And it's hard, but it's doable, and it's challenging because we can't just be all the time the same, play the same roles.
Right.
Even though a lot of actors, they typecast it all the time, right?
Yes, I see it all the time.
Every time. And this is how we make money. This is how, people, survive in this business. But
Right.
at the same time, every single actor who's typecasted, I guarantee you, everybody wants something challenging. And, this is one of those examples where, I'm very happy to have been chosen for this project and to carry this film. I'm very proud of it. And, I'm hoping there's more projects like this will come my way, where we can tell.
I think it would be a disservice to you if more projects didn't. You have such a robust range. And you see all of it in this film. You see all of the ranges in which you can play, which, I mean, that's one of those things that I think makes a great actor, is being able to share all of those emotions, the roller coaster,
Yeah,
you do it so beautifully. So how has this movie changed you?
It's not that it changed me. It just, I started, I always was aware of, and paying attention to the stories about sex trafficking. And, I know people who live with depression and, mental illnesses, which is very sad, outside of being, in captivity. Just, in general, mental illness is a big issue.
Right.
And then after this project, after, doing all this research and portraying this character, you pay attention even more. Like, you just like, you see a note somewhere in the bathroom in the movie theater where it says, if you notice, suspicious activity and it could be a sex trafficked victim, make sure you report. There's in a plane, we fly, and now there is a special sign that a victim can make if they know that, to communicate with a flight attendant or with anybody nearby to kind of create an awareness. The more people talk about it, the more people will participate and engage. I think the sooner this issue will be taken more seriously. And I don't know about the resolution completely of this issue, just because as long, just like an economy, as long as there's a demand, there will be supply, unfortunately. Right. Yeah. So as long as there are people out there who buy those services and pay for those services, unfortunately, it will exist.
Right.
Those are black markets. They're doing this. But again, the more people get involved, the harder it will be for those bad people to do what they're doing.
Yeah. And I think that's why I found, I was expecting to get a psychological horror thriller, because that's the genre that it's lumped under. But it was really so much more than that. It was so much more depth to this. And it really kind of makes you sit back and question what we are doing for these victims. How can we stop it? What are signs of this? How can we better support the mental health aspect of this? And it really does touch on a whole broad range of things that nobody is talking about. It's like a taboo subject and nobody is talking about it. And that was the powerful thing about this film, is like, it was everywhere. You couldn't escape it.
Oh, yeah.
It was, and that's so powerful. Okay, so I have a question. It's a fun one.
Let's do it.
All right. So who is your dream director and dream co-star that you would love to work with?
Ooh.
I know.
Oh. Then they're going to see it later on when I work with them. They're going to say I had a crush on them or something. I'm just kidding.
Or we'll send this in to them and be like, see, look, she's amazing in this movie. You should watch it.
I'm just joking, of course. I always, my dream director is Steven Spielberg. I love Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
I love Michael Bay movies. I mean, but Steven Spielberg is just someone that I always dreamt of working out. And of course, I want to meet Clint Eastwood.
Oh.
I don't know about working with him, but I want to, because, he's just my dream director and an actor. He's so talented. Clint Eastwood.
He really is. He really is. And like the sad thing about him, and like the thing that I love that since he's older now, he's branching out.
We'll never work with him, but
well, we can hope. We'll send it out. Hey, Clint Eastwood, if you're
listening
to us.
I just want to say hi to him. I love him so much.
Well, and he was typecast in the spaghetti westerns until he was like older. And then now he's like got Gran Torino and like all of these $1 Million Baby. And he finally broke out of that typecast. And you can see his range and it's incredible.
The range and as a director, he's so powerful as a director. Yes. I mean, his movies are just, you watch them and it's always a great story. He always manages to get the movies with scripts with a great story.
Yes, he does. Oh, speaking of spaghetti westerns, I did watch Death Rider and the House of Vampires.
Oh yeah.
I was told that was the movie we were going to be talking about. So I watched it. I wrote all my questions for it. And then it was like, no, we're doing Captors. And I was like, okay, I'll watch that one too. Like, I'm not going to complain. But so that one looked like a fun movie to work on. It just looked like sheer joy. Because it's a spaghetti western spoof reminiscent of like the 1970s grindhouse movies. So what was your favorite part of like doing that film?
It's just really fun to play a vampire. I've never been a vampire before, and this was my lucky opportunity. So it just, wear the things and walk around. I was playing a madam. So I was supplying the girls to the vampires in the sanctuary.
Right. And I loved the costumes. Like I loved your dress. So beautiful. Cool. Like your hairstyle. And
this was a wig made out of human hair, and it looked just like human hair.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, it was so beautiful.
That was beautiful. Yeah. And your accent was great too. I just need to tell you that. I'm a Texas girl, so I can always kind of pick out accents like Knives Out. I love Daniel Craig, but his accent wasn't super great in that one. And I was like, but you did such a great job.
And the thing is, for me, I've never done Southern accent before in my life because I'm Eastern European, so English is not my first language.
Right.
But Southern accent is challenging. But the thing is, if the more you listen to it, the more, if you immerse yourself into that environment, which I was not in that environment. I had a friend of mine who, when I was putting audition together, he read it to me. We had sides. I said, can you please read it to me so I can like play it a few times in my head? And then I tried to repeat the way how he sounded,
Right.
And then Glenn, every time we would be like doing my scenes, Glenn would be like, do it this way, do it that way. And then he would be like guiding. He thought it was fun. He thought it was great that, I never did the Southern accent before, and here we go.
Here you go. It was amazing. You did really well. And I mean, really. That movie was just really fun to watch. I have it. It's one of those that it's not around anymore. Like I literally haven't seen one that's like that since the 80s and the 70s.
Yeah.
And it was a nice track down memory lane for how they felt back then. And so it was amazing.
Thank you so much for watching everything and being so diligent.
Well, thank you. It was fun. I enjoy it. It's a thrill. So much like acting for you, you just enjoy it. It's not work. It's work, but it's fun work.
It's fun work. It's fun. Whenever it's fun. They only think it was really cold there on the set because it was outside and it was wintertime in California, but everything else was fun and amazing.
That's great. Well, so Where can everybody find you social media wise?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. So at official Yulia Klass, similar on Twitter. And our movie website is captorsmovie.com. Captorsmovie.com. Yeah, not the movie. And we have some behind the scenes there. We've got production steals. We have the red carpet from our private screening for cast and crew. If someone is interested, they can go there and check it out.
Oh, that's fun. And where can they buy, like, where would they be able to find Captors? Like Best
Captors,
Buy?
Yeah, so Captors is available right now on all VOD platforms, Apple, Amazon, Hulu, YouTube, etc.
Oh, well, I really appreciate you coming and talking with me and taking some time out of your day to speak with me on such a profound and emotionally empowering movie. And if you guys haven't seen Captors, like, it's 10 out of 10. Like, if I could do 11 out of 10, I would. But you guys should all watch this. You will not be disappointed.
Oh, thank you.